Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and hearty welcome to the Namibia Investment Summit here at AFSIC. It is indeed an honor for us to be here today. This is I think the first time in actually a few years that Namibia is represented here, and we're very pleased that you found time in your schedule to be with us. Quite a full program, and as we know from the format from other presentations, not a lot of time, so you'll pardon me for really just getting on with it. Please allow me to introduce our High Commissioner, Namibia's High Commissioner in the United Kingdom, Her Excellency Linda Scott, to do the welcoming for us. Thank you.
Shall I talk from here? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Namibia. For the moment, that's where you are. So I want to say it's a great honor to be here sharing the stage with Francois van Schalkwyk and our CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion Development Board and the team, and also our representative of the Namibia Stock Exchange. I want to say that you are welcome to come to Namibia for investment. You're welcome to come to Namibia for business and for holiday. I heard earlier that Mauritius is a great place to live. Well, I think Namibia is nicer. I love Mauritius, believe me, I've been there, but it's not, Namibia is not as humid as Mauritius. Okay, we can't compete with the beaches, but we can compete in many other ways. So you're welcome to come and see what we have. We are focusing on impactful investment in Namibia. If you come to our country, you can be sure that you will find the environment laws are in place, the governance laws are in place, the social laws are in place. So you'll be working with people who know what they want and who know how to make it happen. And you are very fortunate. At this time, you have the Namibia Investment Promotion Development Board who are ready to hold your hand through a one-stop shop process and make sure that you get everything you need and that you are successful in Namibia. So I'm not going to go on about that, but just to say that if you need any information, the High Commission here in London is on just off Regent Street, very easy to get to, near Oxford Street, and we're always ready to help you connect to the right people where you need us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We're going to play a short promotional video now. Thank you.
Located on the west coast of southern Africa, Namibia has a population of 2.5 million people, occupying 824,292 square kilometers of breathtaking landscapes, home to abundant wildlife. Since its independence in 1990, Namibia has proven to be an African reference due to its political and economic stability, sustained by a flourishing democracy. Over the past 30 years, the country has seen the peaceful transfer of power of 3 presidencies. Namibia is a land of hospitable people with rich cultural traditions and exciting investment opportunities. Through the world-class port at Walvis Bay, the country positions itself as a logistics hub for road, rail, and sea freight, connecting neighboring countries and the broader Southern Africa development community with the rest of the world. Namibia, in reinforcing its strategic position of a logistical hub, continues to invest in infrastructural projects to facilitate easy access and movement of people and goods throughout SADC countries with a population of more than 300 million people and further access to the wider African market of 1 billion consumers through the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The long-term economic and political strategy of growth is firmly based on ensuring openness to trade and external investment while advancing development of strategic key sectors of Namibia's economy: mining, fishing, agriculture, tourism, renewable energy. Namibia's vast renewable energy generation potential affords our generation with the opportunity to produce green hydrogen at unparalleled scales, thereby supporting our global objectives to decarbonize the planet. A prosperous and industrialized Namibia, developed by her human resources, enjoying peace, harmony, and political stability. Vision 2030. To achieve economic progression, social transformation, environmental sustainability, and good governance, the Namibian government is implementing the Harambee Prosperity Plan 2. HPP2 presents an opportunity to build on the legacy of the past 3 decades and guarantee a more secure future through resilient processes, systems, and institutions. The plan aims at implementing policy programs which enhance service delivery, private sector-led and inclusive economic growth. Namibia's diversification strategy is set to increase investment and development of the food industry, transport and logistics, metals, mining, renewable energy, chemicals and basic materials, digital and global business services, and machinery and electronics. With the vision of private sector-led growth, Namibia is open to trade and foreign direct investment and is continuously proving to be the preferred investment location in Africa. Among the reasons for this include protection of ownership rights and rule of law, sophisticated financial systems, trade agreements that facilitate regional, continental, and international market access, peace, and stability. A nation powered by nature and fueled by hope. A nation where our unity is our strength, where determination and passion endures. A nation powered by our unwavering belief in our values, our resources, and above all, our people. This is how we are shaping our future. Welcome to Namibia, the land of the brave.
It's my great honor to introduce Mrs. Nagula Wahandra. She's the Chief Executive Officer and Chairperson of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board. Thank you, Nagula.
Thank you very much, Francois, and good morning. I know it has been a long morning. I'm a Namibian that likes a lot of attention. And normally, I like to get comfortable by being greeted back. So I greeted and the room was quiet. And now I don't know if I need to run away or what. Okay, so I will do it again. Good morning. Good morning. Finally, thank you. I feel a little bit welcome. So I think I'm in the right room, definitely. So thank you very much. It's an honor for me to speak to you about Namibia. We don't have a lot of minutes, but I'm one person that talks a lot and talks very fast. So I need to start because my message about Namibia is packed and it's a lot, and they've given me, I don't know if it is 15 minutes. Oh, okay. So I definitely need to get it going. So talking about Namibia, and let me see, this is what I need to be driving. Hopefully, if I don't get to the rest of the story, that's why I played the video first, so that you have gotten some kind of understanding about Namibia. But maybe let me start with something that got me excited yesterday in the first opening panel. So in the first opening panel, I wanted to say some comments, but then time was over, but somebody made a comment that got me excited. And the comment was, of course, Africa is risky, and any investor going to Africa, of course, wants more. It's almost like you only go to Africa if you really, really want to make a difference. If you want to get returns, go somewhere else, because investors who want returns, they will go to America and Europe. So the person says to something to that. So because Africa is risky, and I think it followed, the first comment was, any investment into Africa will make a difference, and I agree 100%. Then the next statement the person says, So if you want to make a difference, of course, go to Africa. If you want to go to get returns, go somewhere else. That's the way I got it. And I got excited. And I was really looking for an opportunity to say something, but I never got it. So, and I said, this is actually what the challenge is. And probably two messages that I got from there. Number one is fighting the stigma of you cannot get good returns in Africa, and therefore if you go to Africa, be prepared to lower your return and only when you want to make a difference. I think it's such a wrong message because I believe you go to Africa, you will get the highest return. And therefore, if you come to Namibia, we want it to be a business deal where we gain and you gain and everybody wins. So we don't want you to come to Namibia because you are coming there for aid. We want you to come to Namibia because you are making a business decision. And you make a business decision to come to Namibia and invest in Namibia, and hopefully we are also making an investment decision for us to have you in Namibia and contribute to the Namibian economy. That's one. Number two, Africa is risky, and I look at all the ranking about Namibia and how safe Namibia is, and to us, Namibia's safety is so given that we normally don't go around talking about it because it's a given. But I have found out since I joined this industry about a few months ago that I need to talk about Namibia's safety because it's assumed the whole of Africa from south to north to wherever, it's an unsafe place, and therefore I need to answer that question for investors. So I can promise you that Namibia is probably safer than some European countries, safer than America. Actually, my kids are afraid of going like to the USA because they think somebody will shoot them just by being in the streets. So they kind of feel like, I am sorry, I will not go and study university in the USA. I like my life, I cannot die. So, so those perceptions, let us deal with the perception, but hopefully let us put that aside. I'll talk about it, but let us have it that whatever I tell you, safety, security, and all those stories in Namibia is a given. And we can answer that question, but we can also settle it. Okay, how many minutes gone already? So about Namibia. Now, of course, one thing I have realized is the good news is I'm not in the USA, I'm here, and the people here know more about the world map than the people in the USA. Sorry if there is an American in the room. Is that not so? You know more about the map of the world. So how many of you know where Namibia is on the global map? Oh, you see, I don't need to teach you geography, so you know already. Okay, so that is Namibia right there. I said, some people that don't know Namibia, I said, I'm not sure. Many of you know South Africa. Most of you have heard about Angola. There is a beautiful space in between those two countries. That is Namibia. So it is as nice and as short as that one. Namibia is the second least densely populated country in the world. So our population is 2.5 million, while our land size is 824,000 square kilometers. So we have got huge tracts of land with two deserts on either side of the country. So it's a nice, peaceful country where you can come, and if you want to see people, you can see people. If you don't want to see them, you can go into the desert and just have fun. So that is Namibia for you. So, and I can tell you a few other things about Namibia that we have there. Of course, we've got challenges, and I want to come to those challenges. And of course, I will tell you how you can help us with those challenges, but of course, what are the benefits for you? So the Namibian economy. If we quickly look about the Namibian economy, we are classified as an upper middle income country. And again, it's because we've got a very low population. And if you divide GDP by the size of the population, our GDP per capita is relatively high. And because it's relatively high, people that give aid are told, if you want to give aid, give it to somebody else. Namibia is sorted. But then investors come and say, Namibia is about 2.5 million people. How do I come to Namibia? Where is the market for me to do business? And therefore, we are somewhere there. Investors shy away because the population is not here. Aid shy away because we are rich enough, and therefore we are somewhere in the middle. And I want to kind of tell people, yes, aid, of course, we will welcome it, but I want to speak more to investors and make a case for why you should come to Namibia and be part of the solution to our challenges. So yes, our growth rate has deteriorated over a few years, between 2015 and now. it was actually going very well between 2000 and 2015. And we found out it's because commodity prices, Namibia has got a lot of natural resources, it was government spending, and then it was non-tradables. So we are now working on some diversification that I will touch about later. So that is our FDI data. So we were able to attract good FDI up to around about 2015. And then 2016, it started to decline. Of course, then COVID came through, but we can see that there has been really a rebound since 2021 and 2022, and we want to see that becoming more and more, and that is why we are here. So let's see, am I somewhere? So there is just our GDP growth, and then we go to the next graph, which is our exchange rate. Exchange rate of Namibia, it's tied to South Africa rand. So if you know how the rand works, then you know how the Namibian dollar works. We were a former colony of South Africa up to 1990. So more or less, I know like many people know South Africa. So just imagine that Namibia is the safest South Africa. So that is the easiest. It's like South Africa, just safer. That is the way you can look at it. And then we can look at this one, export and import of goods. We import a lot, so we do not produce more, and therefore we suffer a lot of deficit, and that is what is giving us some of our challenges. So what do we import and export? We export mainly, of course, to South Africa, China, and the Eurozone. We export precious metals, uranium, and fish. Actually, most of our fish goes to Spain, and there's a lot of beef that comes to the UK and Norway. And then what we import a lot from South Africa, China, and India, and we import really mineral fuels, machinery, and vehicle parts. And quickly, since we are in the UK, let's look at some trade between Namibia and the UK. So what we export to the UK, some grapes, or what they call stamp impressed paper, wood, charcoal, tanned or crushed hides, and then, like I said, some meat of bovine animals. And then what we get from the UK, it's what they call, some of these ones I actually had to research, and I said, what is acrylic polymers? So who knows what is that? What is that? Plastic, thank you. Okay, so it's just a nice way of saying plastic. And then we've got petroleum, oil, and a few other items that we import from the UK. And then let's look at where UK investment goes. That was a nice picture. So UK has got really good investments, outward FDI. And of that FDI, 2.9% goes to Africa. Lots of it goes somewhere else. And the one that goes to Africa, 0.6 comes to Namibia. We need to increase that figure, and I need your help. So if putting it, and you will understand why I put it, I'm an auditor by profession. Let me just confess, that's why you see a lot of graphs and figures, because I think in numbers. Hopefully they are easier to tell the story. So if you were just wondering where I'm coming from with my data and so forth. So if you look at this one, again, that is the UK imports to the rest of the world. Where is this? Yeah, so that is, investment to the rest of the world. And actually, for me to fit these two graphs on this one page, I had to factor the 10, kind of divide by 10 the Africa ones, and divide by 1,000 the Namibian ones. So, of course, it's more or less in the same line. The direction where it is flowing, it is the same levels, but definitely we want to remove, at least start by removing 1 0 there, 2 zeros, and eventually be able to fit Namibia on this graph. How can we do that? There is some trade agreement between Namibia and UK that can enable you as an investor that is based in the UK or anywhere else to be able to invest in Namibia and get your goods on the UK market. I told you one of the challenges that we have as Namibia is if I invite investors, then they say, you are only 2.5 million people. How do I make a business case? So I said, it's okay, you don't need to sell to Namibians. You can sell to Africa and to the rest of the world. And therefore, one thing that we are doing is making sure that we've got good trade agreements. So one of that is with the UK, and therefore we've got good unrestricted access to UK market. We've got to the US through AGOA. We have got Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that is coming up, and therefore market access for your goods from Namibia is actually something that one can talk about. So looking at that growth then, of course, we are talking about a middle income challenge. I told you the triple challenges. So now we have got the challenges of unemployment. We've got very high unemployment. Of the 2.5 million people, the unemployment rate is just not acceptable. Poverty, something that we do not want to have in Namibia. And then inequalities. We are the second most unequal country in the world. That is not a good message at all. So that are some of the challenges that we have. We need to deal with them, and our president has decided inclusive growth, which is led by the private sector. That is the way we want to deal with the challenges that are facing Namibia, and therefore we need to appeal to the private sector and say, how can we get the private sector to work with the government to address the challenges that Namibia is facing? And that is why then he created the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, which was opened last year in January, and we are in his office. So he appoints the chairperson, who is also the CEO, and then says, please tell me what we are doing there. So please, if you want me to keep my job, let's see how we can work together to deal with the triple challenges facing Namibia. So there we have got our vision, and from that vision, more what I want to talk about is our priority sectors. So those are the priority sectors that we are looking at. What I told you earlier is our economy, when it started to go down, and we looked at why is it going down, why can we not use the formula that we were using when it was growing well? And we realized that formula was about government spending, it was about commodities, it was about non-tradables, probably not a very good sustainable formula. We need to come up with a different formula. And that formula led us to these products. So we worked with the university, the Harvard Growth Lab. It is a part of the Harvard University. We are working with them on a 3-year program, kind of looking at research about Namibia and saying, looking at who Namibia is, looking at your resources, looking at the skills, looking at so whatever, the kind of sectors that you can make a difference sooner, these are the ones, and therefore how many products that you need to focus at this one, and therefore speak to investors in these areas, you should be able to look at the difference. And therefore, one thing that we're doing with them is they look at the policy and say, okay, what are some of the things that are hindering investors from coming to Namibia? It's reforms, it's about policy. What are some of those policies? So we are working with them to look at some of the policies that we need to consider. How can we, as the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, work with our colleagues in the rest of the government to reform the policies that will enable the dream that we want to work at, and so forth. And therefore, we want to welcome you to Namibia. If there was something that was standing in your way before, we said that we are busy doing studies and we are listening, and we want to bring about the change that will help us to solve those challenges. So those are the sectors that we are having, which is renewable energy. We believe that Namibia is probably one of the top 3-4 countries in the world for renewable energy and green hydrogen potential. And then, of course, the food industry, chemicals, transport, services, metals, mining, machinery, fintech, tourism, and exploration. I'm sure that you may have heard recently, Total Energies and Shell have discovered oil on the coast of Namibia. A company like Chevron has now bought into one of the wells in Namibia, and therefore we see ourselves as a country growing also from those resources, like I said, to solve the triple challenges that are facing our people. Now, why Namibia? And I promise you I will come to the end very, very shortly. Francois is looking at me with big eyes, so it means my time is probably almost up. So why Namibia? We are part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. If you invest in Namibia, with that, you will get access to those countries that have signed up and are busy acceding to the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now, we know that Africa is importing a lot. And what African leaders are saying is, when we look at European countries, they are trading among each other. When we look at Americas, they are trading among each other. When we look at Asia, they are trading among each other. We as Africans, we are not trading among each other. And therefore, we are exporting the jobs of our country, of our children by exporting natural resources, and that is something that needs to change. And therefore, we put together what we call Agenda 2063. And we will remove duties for goods that are produced in Africa and going to other African countries. So if your competitor gets to Namibia or to any other African country before you do, then their goods will probably get some kind of preferential market if you are exporting to Africa right now. So it might be a good idea for you to start having that conversation so that in 5 years, when that agreement is all well and working, then you're probably one of the first companies that are ready to make sure that you take advantage of that. The next one there is other agreements beside the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. There is many others that we have that I have put up there. And then this is Namibia. We are your entry to Africa. We have got a good coast, and we have built a huge harbor at this town of Wafish Bay. And we're probably one of the safest countries to transport goods through, whether you are importing from other African countries or importing into other countries, whether it is to Angola. Sometimes we can actually reach this southern part of Angola than Angola can, and we can reach the northern part of South Africa sometimes faster than South Africa can. We've got Botswana, who is our landlocked neighbor, and so is Zimbabwe and Zambia. We've got DRC there. Those are the immediate neighbors. But of course, with that one, we definitely are working on that logistic hub to make sure that Namibia is your entry point to the rest of Africa. I think that is probably my second last slide. Very loaded. You can read it, but those are the reasons why Namibia. So, why Namibia? Political stability, you have heard, we've got a democracy, 2 terms for each president, 5 years each. We are busy talking about how we will work on the transition to the next president in 2025. So far, we are on our 3rd president since independence, and therefore, political stability has been established. Human rights, liberty, rule of law, we have got an independent judiciary. Our government does not interfere with how the judiciary works, so you can read up on that one, and you will see how many cases government has won against the private sector and how many the private sector has won against government. It all depends on who has got the better case. Financial systems that are sophisticated, advanced infrastructure. We have got the best roads in Africa. That is a ranking. They say our roads are actually better than those of Switzerland if you go to the ranking. For the 5th running year, we've got the best roads in Africa. Accessible workforce, quality of life. We have had many companies that have invested in Namibia. Logistic hub, as I've mentioned, we have got abundance of natural resources. We have got agreements for you to consider. We protect investors. You can repatriate your money with no issues. You can convert your currencies, no problem. And we are committed to dispute protection in our laws. So that is just the few reasons why you must consider Namibia. And if you have listened to this message and you think it is appealing, that is the body that you should try to get in contact with, and we can be your first point of entry. But we have got the High Commission office right here, and we've got a lady that is representing us at the High Commission office. So Francois, we need to make sure that we add the address of the High Commission office there. Please do not send the email to me. Linda will be not pleased. We will share with you her details so that Linda and Tina will be the persons that can receive that. If they don't respond to you within 48 hours, you can always send the email to me. So I think that is my message, Francois. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Suwanja, for your presentation and the very insightful message. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Francois van Skalkwyk. Like you have figured out, I'm sure, I'm the Executive Director for Investment at the NIPDB. My team principally looks after really landing investors like yourself, facilitating your activities in country, and of course, yeah, really getting you kick-started as to your, doing business in Namibia. Like Ngula said, it's a free market economy, so you don't need our permission really or anyone's permission really to do business. It's a question of following the regulations and the rules that are in place, and really just cracking on. So I think what is quite interesting about the NIPDB is, although yes, we are typically the first stop for foreign investors in particular, but also we serve really a wide church of domestic investors as well. I wanted to, you'll see on the tables, you have a little bookmark there. There's also a QR code on the bookmark. That basically takes you to our website. We have a lot of further information on there, amongst others, a small catalog, which is also on the AFSIC platform, I believe. And I think, Mr. Technical Man, if you can just show me the other slide pack. But so I'll highlight just a few projects that we're looking at the moment. So at the NIPDB, we of course, yes, we support especially the large-scale government projects, like you might imagine. I'm sure many of you are aware of the green hydrogen project that we're doing on the south coast, like Ngula explained. So yes, as an entity, we do support those projects technically, but also on a policy basis. But then, of course, the private sector is a very active private sector as well. So we are principally really focusing or refocusing our attention to kind of ESG type investments. So you'll find solar, and then of course solar and other green energies. But also at the same time, yes, we definitely look at things like agriculture, in particular technology in agriculture. And so yes, we do facilitate really a range of private sector projects from time to time as well. I think similar to what most other IPAs do, we definitely work with you kind of on a case-by-case basis. So of course, some projects need more hand-holding than others. But also at the same time, of course, like I said, there are rules and systems and institutions in place, and they seem to kind of do the job pretty well. I think, are you ready? Okay, one second. Okay. So I think the last point I wanted to make was, hopefully by then they're ready, is really around the green energy industry. It is, of course, I'm just anticipating the questions really at the end of the session, but I think it is maybe wise for me to say at this point. So Namibia basically has one of the most liberalized energy trading markets in Africa. We at this stage, within the current regime, we do allow independent power producers to sell cross-border into other countries, and in particular to other grid operators, but also large customers. And to that effect, of course, we've seen kind of a surge in inquiries, but also activity around these particular assets, or developments. So one of the projects that's also in the catalog I'm referring to is a solar energy project, 125 megawatt solar energy project in the Karas region, which is in the south of Namibia. They're looking to raise $107 million US. They have, we believe, secured offtake agreements with potential industrial customers, but also talking to our neighbors on a bilateral basis. So there are a number of projects like this. Another one maybe worth highlighting is it's a company called the Future Yield Hydroponics. Again, large-scale hydroponics project. Thank you very much. Hydroponics project. So this is the solar energy project I referred to. So you'll see in the catalog there's some detail around it. Please have a look and feel free to, like I said, be in touch with us afterwards. We'll also be here afterwards to have a brief conversation with you about that. Again, a large-scale project. They're looking to expand. They've certainly been able to kind of get a kick started and to a certain extent, the kind of the total value of the project is, or the funding they're looking for is around $30 million US. Blue Kelp. So Blue Kelp is really quite a unique project in its own way. It's based off the coast at Lüderitz. It's also in the Karras region. So the two kind of main, except for using the kelp as a source of supplements, but also the other uses for this particular type of kelp. Blue kelp really have sequestering carbon, and then of course the associated carbon credits with that, but also to boost diversity in the economy, diversity in the ecosystem. It's a substantial project, and they're looking to raise $70 million US. The Roots project is a diversified agri-village concept. They focus really on supplying food to the region. So it is, yes, hydroponics, but also an element of animal husbandry, and of course the associated processing with those products. So they're looking to raise approximately $8 million US. And then second but last is Lodestone Mining. Lodestone is a mine very near the capital, Windhoek. What is quite interesting is they've recently completed their demonstration phase of the project. Very keen to introduce, of course, hydrogen to that mix, and to produce those highly sought after high-grade pellets. We're looking at concentrations of between 66 and 68% Fe. So clearly kind of hitting that mark, and they are talking to a number of investors, but they've advised us that they're looking to have further conversations. They're looking to raise approximately $75 million US. And then lastly is President's Links. President's Links is a lifestyle estate, quite a substantial investment they're looking to make. They've raised, significant funding already. I think that they're beyond 50% already. They're looking to raise an additional $55 million. It is near the coast, near Walvis Bay. The idea is it's a golf estate / multi-use real estate development, a combination of retail but high-end living, as you might imagine, and then of course a tourism and hospitality component as well. So like I said, this is just a kind of a cross-section selection of the type of projects that are happening at the moment. So some of these will be most of these will be very happy to have conversations with you, about these projects. If you're interested, please approach me afterwards. Otherwise, if you follow the QR code on the tag on your table, you can contact us through the website as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I would like to introduce the CEO of the Namibia Stock Exchange, Tiaan Bassane. Tiaan will brief us shortly around the financial services sector in Namibia. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for inviting me to have a chat with you this morning. I didn't bring any slides, but luckily I speak even faster than Angula does, so I hope I can give you a little bit of information in a very short period of time. Maybe first and foremost, when looking at the financial services and the banking industry in Namibia, it's important to note that it's very closely linked to the South African financial services, which are of a very high standard, internationally rated. So as Nangula said, we're like South Africa, only safer. So in the same sense, we have great banking and financial services while living in a country that has reliable power, which is also useful during these days. I think that's an important note to make, is that with a regionally interconnected electricity grid, we actually have reliable power. Also to that, we are connected to 2 international sea cables, so we have reliable internet connectivity as well with various local suppliers and regional suppliers for these services. Especially for the financial services, that's very important. And we've seen at the stock exchange, we've had exponential growth over the last decade. By total market capitalization, we're the 2nd biggest in Africa. Again, that's because of the connection to South Africa and the pegging of the Namibian dollar to the rand. In the last 10 years, we've had more than 100 billion Namibian dollars issued in debt, and our local companies have raised in excess of 5 billion Namibian dollars in capital. So we've got a lot of local capital within that section because we have a domestic asset regulation which requires our pension and investment industry to invest 45% locally. Assets under management within that industry is in excess of 210 billion Namibian dollars. So there's a lot of captive capital available. And if companies or investors were to come to Namibia, that becomes available as well. So what we've seen is firms starting a business and being able to tap into the local currency issuances in bonds and not necessarily having to bring in all the capital from their home base. So depending on the industry and the viability and the stage of the project, that's certainly attractive to know that you can also access finance locally. Also within the banking industry, there's a lot of local capacity, but you also see syndication between the banks for bigger projects, and they can even tap into the South African market in the same way as well. Same goes for currency hedging, which is usually one of the biggest risks associated with Africa investing. There are lots of products available on exchange or via the banking industry to actually hedge the exposure and not take unnecessary risk when it comes to your foreign currency investments. Before joining the exchange, I was involved in the ICT industry, and we actually had a conglomerate of international and local investors start the second mobile operator in Namibia. After setting up the greenfield operations, they actually sold that one off to Orascom, which you might know as the Egyptian telco operator. And I went through the process with the shareholders to actually repatriate their funds. There was no issue. It was declared when they came in. They took out not only the initial investment, but also all their profits without any problems whatsoever. It was actually a fairly simple process. And that's even before we had the NIPDB being established. So now there's actually someone that can hold your hand when you come in, not only assist you when you go out. So I've seen this process play out before, and I've seen what it can be like in other jurisdictions. And there's a fairly big difference between the way business is being done in Namibia and many other jurisdictions in Africa. And I think some of those concerns and some of those comments that we heard yesterday about what it's like to invest in Africa, I think is painting with a very broad brush, which is unfair. Namibia, I think, is still the undiscovered country as far as investment goes to many investors. But I think the future is incredibly bright in terms of what's going to be happening to Namibia in the next couple of years. The oil, the hydrogen, all of these great avenues are there. But just the investment mindset that's changed in the last couple of years, I find very exciting. We're seeing a focus on investment that we haven't seen before from government and the regional plays because of what's going to happen with the African Free Trade Agreement, and because I think governments are waking up that we are to some extent all competing with each other. And while I think that was a dirty word a couple of years ago, government certainly didn't want to be seen to be competing with each other, there's a realization that some have been competing all along, and some of us might not have been in the game, but we certainly are now. The geographical location of Namibia allows it to be influential in various ways, and a friendly investment environment that I'm seeing now certainly plays into what we could be doing and punching way above our weight very soon. I think that was the short of that, or maybe what I can just further say is, the recent example that I can just use of what we've seen from an international investment play is Namibia Breweries, which is the local brewery which has quite a reach in terms of its products, had a joint venture with Heineken, and we've actually recently had a transactional announcement there where Heineken is buying out Namibia Breweries in terms of that brewery, which is a substantial transaction in itself. And if you see international players like that willing to actually invest further in the region, it gives you a sense that firstly they believe their investment to be secure, and secondly also that it's not problematic or it's not a hindrance for them in terms of processes, regulatory processes, and even currency risks to do that type of investment. Of course, they're producing a product that they're selling locally, and they have currency risk all over the world. But that's quite encouraging to see the quantum of funds that's being invested in Namibia, and us being an attractive investment destination. I think I'll close off on that. Maybe if there's questions, then we can address those specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, Tian, and ladies and gentlemen. So normally with these kind of things, there might be questions in particular around the financial services sector. So we're going to take some general questions from the floor, maybe one or two or three. So if there are questions, please raise your hand, and if we can ask, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the talk. I just wanted to ask everyone, I think waves were made by the discovery of quite sizable oil fields off the coast of Namibia, and I wanted perhaps you guys to talk about how you think that could change the face of Namibia, economically, financially speaking, in the next few years.
Yeah. Maybe I just want to take us back before oil specifically. Oftentimes, Africa is accused of having a resource curse, in that proceeds of resources are not allocated adequately or eloquently. So Namibia and Botswana are probably some of the best examples, having had diamonds early on, in terms of exploiting the resource and doing it in a way to increase tax revenue and not individual revenue. So in Africa, really only Angola and Nigeria have substantial oil fields that have been exploited, and in both cases, the allocation of the proceeds were probably not great. If I were to take a business view in terms of what Namibia could be doing with the proceeds of the oil, I have a very positive view on that, because we were able to do it right with diamonds. The implications of the find itself, just in terms of the amount of capital that has to flow into Namibia to exploit the oil fields, will already make a difference. That's before we even get to the point where the tax revenue from the proceeds itself can make a massive difference. That could lead to a 50% increase in the tax revenue base. So all in all, that's quite positive. Even at this stage, just with the influx of people, if we look at what happened in Luanda prior and after oil exploitation, that city basically started from 10% of what it was to what it is now. The implication on the property sector, services sector, everything coming out of this could be vast in terms of a very small population, a small GDP versus that type of income coming through.
Thank you. Maybe one more? So?
Thank you very much. So one thing that our president stresses in Namibia is something he calls systems, processes, and institutions. And we want everything addressed according to that. And especially we as the investment promotion, sometimes there's investors, for example, they want to pay a courtesy call to the president, and his view is, please don't bring me somebody who has not yet invested. There are ministries that deal with processes. I want to speak to investors, not potential ones. And there's a reason for that. It's because I do not want somebody to say, I kind of influenced the decision on where it goes and so forth. So we know we have probably tried one or two places where people want to see the president, and now we have learned, let's not try to make meetings with him, because we will be disappointed. He will not show up. So investors, you come and you understand and you respect the systems, the institutions, the processes of Namibia. Where is that going? Is, I think, what is good, and this ties with what Tian has said. Now, we have already established that, and it is working. So now, once we have discovered oil and so forth, they will be regulated, by procedures and processes that are established, and therefore it's not something that is coming and all of a sudden you've got a lot of hands. So because we have got institutions, systems, and processes that are already established and have worked on quite a number of resources, and they have been tested with places, things that have gone wrong, and we are busy dealing with instances of potential corruption by high-ranking officials, we know how it can go wrong, and I think our system is almost like proof to some of those challenges. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I want to add from the High Commission point of view. So when you talk about what can Namibia gain from the oil, well, you know, Namibia sees that as a short-term benefit, because in the long term, we're looking at renewable sources of energy. And what does all of that mean? We have a lot of unemployed graduates. So we have people who've got education, but they need to reskill themselves into these different areas. So we are happy if we can work with people to set up, ensure that people can share skills, can share knowledge, and that the Namibian population can also be part of that growth. So we don't only want to see the growth and the benefits going out, we want to see our own population, our own infrastructure growing through these different schemes. So I think that's another aspect which is very important, which is the social side of development. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Sir?
Very brief question. So firstly, thank you, Francois, and thank you, Ms. Wanja and the Namibian team for an enlightening presentation. I'm actually from the noisy neighbor, South Africa, that you've just spoken about. But I have been to Namibia, and everything that you said, really, I endorse it fully, and I'm very excited at what's happening across the border. My question is very brief. Just, we've spoken about all the positive elements, and I think Tian also talked a little bit about repatriation of funds and the smoothness of that. Just a little bit on the tax regime would be quite interesting for me in terms of withholding taxes, VAT, those kind of things. Are they comparable to South Africa? And if there's any major differences, where would those be?
So with regard to the taxes, so our tax rate currently not very good and not competitive at all. So if I start with what is the corporate tax rate, 32%, where South Africa I think is about 28 if I'm not mistaken, and where Botswana is about 22% if I'm not mistaken. And then you come to withhold. The one thing is we do not have capital gains tax, well, as in other countries you've got capital gains tax. And then of course we have got accumulated losses where if you are investors in early years, you can accumulate your losses, and there is no limitation in number of years as to when you can accumulate your losses. And you can actually sell your business, and the person who buys the business gets the benefit of the accumulated losses forever. And where you can also claim your capital allowances over 3 years. So if you do the calculation, probably there are benefits. From a withholding taxes point of view, at this stage we do not have a tax on dividends, but we have got a non-residence dividend tax of about 10%. We have got withholding taxes on services about 10%. So yes, we do have a kind of a comparative table that we compare with others. Like I say, if you just look at it immediately from a corporate tax rate, it's like, okay, definitely not the best place to be. But if you look at some of the items, there is competitive matters there. But we are busy working with our cabinet to see how can we be competitive in terms of incentivizing and providing incentive to investors, whether they are both physical or non-physical incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe one, let me not overstay our welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for...
You can overstay our welcome. I was waiting for the bell and it didn't ring.
Okay, one more question. A hand?
Okay,
No?
no, there's no more one question. So
Oh, great, thank you. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to be with us this morning. Maybe to summarize what my esteemed colleagues have mentioned in short, yes, the NIPDB or the Investment Board is your one-stop shop. This is where you should come and knock for more information about Namibia as an investment destination. If you have any questions around regulation, we're happy to facilitate those conversations for you. We are engaged in substantial policy reform. We're talking about taxation, but also immigration, especially in terms of skills, how to bring highly skilled people to Namibia. And of course, our growth sectors like Mr. Suwanja really talked about at length earlier. Namibia is a safe place to do business. It's definitely one of probably the lowest crime rate in Africa. And from that perspective, and I think as a place to live, you should come and have a look. It's really the only way to figure it out yourself. So please feel welcome. Please visit us when you are in the neighborhood. We will be available for questions and conversations outside the door for the next 30 minutes. Please see us there. But yeah, have a good afternoon and thank you very much.